Welcome to More Than a Lawyer with your host, attorney Christy Crow. This is a podcast that highlights the amazing acts of service that lawyers perform all over the country. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, www.jinxcrow.com. Now here's the host of More Than a Lawyer, Christy Crow.
Welcome back to More Than a Lawyer. We're so excited to have with us today Jared Silberzahn. And I practiced saying his last name so I could get it right. Jared, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Absolutely, Christy. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I can't believe it took until our second season for me and you to meet each other because we have a lot in common, starting with the name of your law firm, Bmore Attorneys. Tell us a little bit about what that means and how you decided to name your law firm that.
Absolutely. So we are based in the Baltimore area, and one nickname for Baltimore is Bmore. There's some dispute about that. The cooler kids now are saying that that's something that guys my age would have called Bmore, 10 or 15 years ago, which is appropriate because we've been around for about 9 now. But you can also imagine secondarily with a last name like Silberzahn, I had to find some, trade name as to a way for people to find me. I don't think that there are too many people that are going to be able to spell Silberzahn correctly and find me that way. So I figured Bmore was a much more appropriate and efficient way for folks that wanted our help to find us.
Well, and not only does it refer to Baltimore, but it also kind of refers to the firm culture that you've developed. Tell us about the firm culture at Bmore Attorneys and why you are so interested in helping your community and the people in Baltimore.
Well, and I'm glad you picked up on that too, Christy. I mean, obviously that first part was the initial reason, but there is, I think, another aspect to it where we do want to be more for not just the clients we serve, but also for our team internally and their families, and also the community at large. And we've been blessed. We're just over our 9th year, and more we get approached with opportunities to help out in various ways. And I know that there's, everybody has their own ideas or mindset about how to do that. I know some folks will dedicate their time and energy and efforts to one specific group and really go kind of, 10 miles deep. What we really approach is trying to get as many touches as we can. There are certain groups that I'm sure we'll talk about that we do a little bit more with, but I do enjoy the fact that if somebody comes to us and asks for support, in the overwhelming majority of instances, we try to find a way to do that. I think it's important for me selfishly. It makes me feel good. And I think that we have basically a responsibility, the more successful we get, to spread it around, so to speak, and make sure that everybody's benefiting in one way or the other, and showing that we're not just a law firm.
Well, and I kind of jumped ahead because normally I do let folks talk about what they do inside their practice and what kind of law they practice before we talk about your outside community efforts. And your name of your firm had me so enthralled that I just jumped ahead. So tell the listeners what you do within your law firm. What kind of law do you practice? You said you've been in Baltimore for 9 years at that firm, but I think you did something a little different before. So give us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. So I started actually on the other side of things. So now I'm a plaintiff's attorney doing personal injury work, a lot of it trial work, and that's been at Bmore Attorney, my firm, for just over 9 years. For a few years before that, I had worked at a larger firm locally that does a lot of advertising and a lot of trial work also for personal injury. But for roughly 10 years before that, when I first started my career, I was an insurance defense attorney for one of the largest home and auto insurers that I won't name, but everyone will know their commercials. And so, I think I fortunately have a fairly unique, I know I'm not the only person out there who's done one side and then switched to the other side, but at this point in my career, I have roughly the exact amount of time on both sides of the courtroom at this point, but God willing, and I'm sticking around for quite a few more years, I'll have a lot more on the plaintiff side by the time I'm done. So we specialize in personal injury here in the Baltimore area, though throughout the state of Maryland as well.
And When you were working with the defense firm, were you involved in your community and doing outreach stuff there?
We did one particular event that was pretty fun that I was hoping we'd talk about. It was not through the firm specifically, and it didn't have anything really to do with me being a lawyer, but a friend of mine and I, a very good friend, organized a karaoke charity event, essentially a bull roast with karaoke, and there were some contests involved. And I know that trial lawyers can sometimes get a bad rap, and I know that karaoke certainly gets maybe a well-deserved bad rap. I don't know, but we were able to raise a substantial amount of money just from friends and family coming to a local high school gym and having fun with karaoke one night. And Outback and the Chesapeake Bay area charities were a huge supporter of that. Cindy Hearn and John Mesher-Bottino and his family were a big assistance to that. And that was a neat, a very fun way to raise, a lot of money. At least for us, I know to the organization, it may have been a drop in the bucket, but a well-deserved cause because they deal with pediatric oncology down at Johns Hopkins at the Sidney Kimmel Foundation. And so it was like very touching at the very end to be asked to present one of those big checks. Again, it wasn't a huge dollar amount, but to be able to do that was very rewarding, and to get to meet some of the kids who had been positively impacted by their time at the Sidney Kimmel Foundation.
So other than the obvious attraction of getting to sing karaoke in front of your friends and torturing them with your singing, or my singing, it would be torture. What made you decide to get involved with that particular charity in the Chesapeake Bay area? Was it the draw to the pediatric oncology, or was there something else that just drew you to that?
It was a mixture, and I would say that it's obviously hard to turn down that cause. I mean, there are a lot of great causes out there, but that one certainly hits you really right in the gut, even if you're not directly impacted by it, when you see the families that are, devastated by pediatric cancer. And coincidentally, we were friends with the people that were in charge of the CBAC. And so when we kind of just almost as a half joke said at the time, hey, what if we did this? Would that be worth your while? And they were all for it. And if it wasn't enough money for them to have justified their investment in that evening, they didn't tell me. So they were very kind to say that it was a worthy event.
Well, and if, like most nonprofits, anything that you can do to bring attention to the nonprofit and to raise more awareness of the needs is always a good thing. And I'm sure you had some good karaokeers. I can't even say the word, karaoke singers there that probably did a much better job than I would have done if I was out there. I think people would pay me not to sing.
And I just wanted to let you know, I didn't hog the mic. I spread it around just to make sure that not everybody had to listen to me the whole time.
Yeah, I bet that was fun. And so when you left there and went to the plaintiff side, you said you were with a larger firm. Did that firm encourage you to do things outside the firm and in your community as well?
Not really. And that's not to disparage that firm. I just don't think that it was a particular priority. And, admittedly at that point, I searched out somebody to get behind, and that was kind of random too. I saw a story in the Washington Post about a young man that was, tragedy, killed overseas. He was college age at the time. And he was involved in a particular group called Camp Opportunity as a mentor to younger children who, for various reasons, had, I guess, for lack of a better term, troubled or less than privileged lives. And the story touched me so much, I reached out and just said, "Is there anything I can do? I'm not sure what skill set I can bring to this, but I know I want to do something if there's a role involved." And that just kind of led to, over the course of time, getting on the board of directors of Camp Opportunity, which I was just very humbled to be a part of, with a great group of people, very giving of their time and their talents. And I was sad to leave when I was starting up my own firm and just could not find a way to make it work where I could justify spending so much time at the office and barely any at home. And so I was kind of very sad to see my time there come to an end, but it was a phenomenal organization and still is.
Well, speaking of starting your own firm, after working at 2 other firms or for 2 other companies that inside the firm did not necessarily prioritize service to the community and volunteer work, was that something that you decided was going to be a priority at your firm?
I think that's fair to say. I mean, I don't want to seemingly brag about this, but I mean, I think I do have an innate sort of desire to help others. And again, some of that is selfish, that it does make me feel better. So again, I'm not patting myself on the back and saying it's all benevolent, but definitely I wanted a different culture. I wanted a different firm. I have in my mind that the way I do things isn't always right, but I think it's got the right reason behind it. And I wish you could come and meet my team because if you had any interaction with them, you would see that I've at least been successful in that regard, because I think the culture within the firm, and that was a purposeful aim, was to make sure that if everybody here within the office was satisfied, or hopefully better than satisfied, with the work environment, with the work we do, both on cases but also in the community, that they would never really feel as much that this was a workplace or a business per se. So we definitely try to do business in a different way, and I think we've been successful in a number of the endeavors. And one, I think, great example of that is we're actually heading out to a place called First Fruit Farms later this month, and we've been there before, and we go as a team, and it is during business hours. We just basically shut the office down. We have somebody answer the phones for that, half day, full day, whatever it winds up being. And First Fruit Farms is a great organization that it's a fully functioning, huge farm in Freeland, Maryland, and it's all volunteer. They grow any number of crops and then ship them up and down the East Coast, I think as far west as Kentucky, and they serve communities that have food insecurities. And I didn't know much about it, candidly. My wife, Jess, is wonderful, and she does a lot of this. And really, I couldn't do many, many things without her. But in particular, this kind of wing of what we do is basically her doing, because I can, a lot of these are her ideas to start. But if I have an idea, she runs with it and sets everything up. And, then I can just basically show up and do the work. And that's obviously another blessing.
That is a huge blessing. It always is good to have good partners in your business and in your life. And so what do you do at your firm to encourage your team members to get involved in the community and to make time for that?
So we kind of bring them into certain activities that we do that are firm planned. And one other, before I think probably more accurately or to the point address your question, one other that we do in office is through Mitch Bricks. And that's a great organization that was actually started by a young man. He's now a senior in high school, but at the time he was just in 4th grade. And he realized at that very young age that he had the benefit of having toys, and realized that there were homeless children in facilities that did not even get to have toys. And so he would take his Legos, thus the bricks part of that. He would take his Legos and play Legos with kids he did not know, and then donate Legos. And over time, that has just blossomed into an even bigger and better organization where they donate clothes. We did a backpacking stuffing just a few weeks ago for kids that need backpacks and various school supplies. And for the past few Christmases, we've sponsored a family, and it's neat. We shut the firm down for a day. And I should mention there's 6 of us, 6 plus me. And so it's, I think, a little bit easier for a firm of our size to be able to do that. But there's still a lot of catching up to do, but everybody's willing to do it, which is nice. And so we go to a Target, Walmart, what have you, break up in teams, and we have a list of what the young boys and girls want, the parents. And it's fun to go shopping for them, but also, a very poignant reminder that we don't have to have people shop for us, and we have the ability not just to pay for these things, but also to, shut down a profitable, law firm for a period of time to be able to not just donate the money, but also donate the time so that other people don't have to do that shopping for the family. But to your point, and I'm sorry to go off kilter there for a bit.
Yeah, you're right.
To try to encourage our folks outside of that, we instituted a relatively new policy where if somebody has a cause that they are is close to their heart, we will give them 2 hours of PTO per month to go and do whatever it is that group does. And so that way, hopefully encourages those folks in our team to go and follow whatever it is that their heart takes them to. And then hopefully they share that with other people, because to your point earlier, I think highlighting these causes is a good thing because other people may gravitate to those causes. And we've seen that and heard evidence of that just from the relatively small impact that we were able to have.
Yeah, I always think that's a good idea to try to let people take some time from work to do some of these things, because like you and like me, they're stretched thin between work and family and everything else. So I love the 2 hours of PTO a month idea. And I guess they could save that up if they want to do a big event at the end of the year and take 2 or 3 days, they could do that, or they could take it every month. So that's a great idea. When as a small business owner myself, I'm always looking for good ideas on how to encourage people to get more involved in the community that are on our team. So I love the ideas of doing something as a team together for a nonprofit, but also giving the 2 hours of PTO a month.
And I can also add that some of my friends who maybe some are small business owners like myself, some aren't, but sometimes they'll say, well, of course the team's going to do it because they're getting paid to do it. Well, I tell them flat out, I've been places I've seen when people get paid to do something, maybe they do it, but they certainly do not do it with the kind of enthusiasm and warm-hearted generosity that my folks have. And I know I'm biased, but I'm biased for good reason. That my folks are the best for good cause, and so I know it's not just I'm getting paid to be here. They could definitely. I've been again places where people do something very begrudgingly with a poor spirit, and my folks do it the right way, and I'm very proud of them.
Well, that says a lot about your ability to find the right team to represent your clients and to represent you in the field. So that's great. It's not only says a good thing about you and your ability to hire the right team, but also your ability to find the right causes that people can get passionate about. Why do you think, when you look around on nonprofit boards, you said you were on a board before you started your firm, and you obviously are very involved in a lot of different nonprofits. Why do you think you see lawyers in these positions on so many boards and things like that?
It's a great question. I think that there is a perception that's hopefully well earned that we're capable of digesting a lot of information, helping out with any type of, if there's a legal strategy that might need to come about, that we can brainstorm and analyze those things. I also think that there's a perception, right or wrong, hopefully more right than wrong, that we have access to more resources than maybe some other occupations. So I think that may be another draw for having a lawyer on a board, or lawyers on a board, that there may be other, whether they be financial resources or just contacts, because I think our networks tend to be broader than some other types of occupations and businesses.
Yeah, definitely. If there's someone listening to this that's a younger lawyer and just getting started and they want to get involved in their community but don't really know how, what advice would you give them?
I'd ask around. I'd ask a friend. I'd ask a parent, a teacher, just anybody. I'd be willing to bet that there are people that have a cause that they just maybe don't talk about. And, I did struggle with that for a number of years, where we were doing things and I wouldn't broadcast them because I was kind of afraid, I guess, for lack of a better term, of being accused of bragging about these types of things. And it turns out that I had a conversation with a friend of mine who said we were doing a coat drive. We did that for a few years before COVID struck. And that was to benefit Helping Up Mission in Baltimore City, which is another great cause. But he pulled me aside, and this isn't the typical conversation I think guys have amongst themselves, at least not at our age. And he was like, I was really inspired by that, and I see what you guys do. And so he wound up putting together a music festival in his neighborhood and then donating all the money to the Maryland Special Olympics. That was Jen and Jason Friedman. Shout out to them for what they did there. But the outpouring, the outpouring extends well beyond what the one person does. So I would just tell the young person that's looking for a cause to either ask around and find out if there's something that someone else they know and trust and like is involved or wants to get involved in, and then it makes it easier. I think that if you can get a friend or somebody that wants to go together, it's a little sometimes awkward to show up as one person and say, hey, I'm here to help. But if you can grab a couple friends together and go and make sandwiches at a homeless shelter, that you can take something that might seem like work and actually turn it into a fun event for a great cause, which is that for First Fruit Farms, that's kind of the idea there. Like you're doing some labor, you're picking whatever and boxing it all up. It's light labor, but it's still labor nonetheless. But it lightens the load when you got some friends around to make lighthearted banter as you go along.
Yeah, and I'm sure for a lot of folks, especially from the Baltimore area, going out to a farm like that and picking fruit and vegetables is something they don't do very often. So it's probably kind of unique. So that's always a good idea too, to do something different and unique and a good way to spend time with friends. You're right. I love it. So finally, this being the More Than a Lawyer podcast, what does being more than a lawyer mean to you, Jared?
I think that it means a big part of what we're talking about here today, that everybody has a perception of what a lawyer is or should be, and that's not always a favorable perception. And I think that anybody that has anything to offer, and we all have something to offer, no matter whether anybody listening believes they do or not, you have something to offer. But the more someone has to offer, I think the higher the responsibility that person has to not bury those talents, but actually invest them and try to share them with as many people as we can, whether that's time, talent, financial resources. And there's ways to do it. So if you think you don't have the time, but you have the money, that's great. If you don't think you have the money, but you have the time, that's great too. And so I think this part of this community involvement is a big piece, I think, of self-care, which I know is such a big, talking point. It's more than a talking point, but the phrase at least. And I think that the more we get out of our own way and into somebody else's cause and help them, the better off we wind up being ourselves. And so I think that if there's anybody that is looking at it as an investment of time that they can't make, I would look at it maybe as a reframing and perhaps consider it as you're doing it for yourself. And I know that's not necessarily the reason, but I promise people if they haven't been involved in these groups, it doesn't take long to be on site and see the impact that you're having, and then also be surrounded by a small or large community, depending on the group size, of like-minded people that really want to make a difference and want to leave this world having been known for something more than being just a lawyer. And this is, I think, one of the best ways to do it.
I love it. Thanks so much, Jared, for joining us on More Than a Lawyer today. And I look forward to meeting your team next time I'm in Baltimore.
Absolutely. Please look me up.
I will.
I appreciate you having me on.
You've been tuning into More Than a Lawyer with your host, attorney Christy Crow. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, www.jinxcrow.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.